Hey guys, Brian here with Better Chess Training, and in today's video, I'm going to be analyzing a interesting endgame from my second round of the Cleveland Open. So check it out. Okay, this is a position from my second round game at the Cleveland Open, and here this is the last point where the game is about even. I think Black has a little bit of an edge because I think the bishop's mobility is a little more useful in with the pawns on both sides. However, it is, the knight can probably hold its own, and when you put it through the computer, it gives a slight edge to Black, and I think that's fairly accurate. Okay, well, let me show you what happened in the game here. At this point, White, and this is actually the fatal mistake. White plays a3 here. Probably a better move may have been to centralize the king with king to e3, or maybe mobilize the knight with something like knight to b2 to d3 or something like that, kind of holding the balance. But I think he wanted to try to keep my king out of b4. I think that was the idea there. And unfortunately, what it allows me to do is bring my bishop in, attacking right away, which forces White's next move if he doesn't want to lose the pawn, which is b4 check. And then from here, my king is able to get in. King to c4, f4, trying to, moving his pawn off of this light square so he can move his king. I just go in for the pawn. And now here, well, let me show you what happened. King to d4, and then king takes a3. Now, king to c5. This, during the game, this actually felt a little dangerous to me. I did feel that I was winning, but I had to be very careful. With the knight, there's a lot of possibilities of forks, and even though it's not as mobile as the bishop, it can cover a lot of ground in a couple moves. Also, White's king is in a very good position and can attack. I was afraid that he would try to swing around here and attack my pawns from behind, as well as exchanging this pawn. But I definitely think that I am winning here, and I thought that during the game, but I was still very cautious. Okay, king to b3, and b5. Now, here, I made... there's a couple moves I could have made. I played bishop to c4, trying to provoke this a little bit, and also with ideas of trying to control this knight. Analysis would later show me that I could have used the same idea, but hit this knight first, forcing it to move. And here's a line that I analyzed with the computer: knight to e3, and then bishop to e2, attacking this pawn. Forcing him to advance, or at least that's what the computer thinks is the best move. And then after I trade this pawn, sometimes this can also be very drawish, because now with the pawns on the board, it's very dangerous. But now, White's king, having recaptured here, is out of position. So king to c3, king to c5, and then this h5 move is necessary to lock this knight out of g4. Okay, f5, the idea here, of course, is to try to break open and undermine this pawn also, so that the knight can move here to d5 as well as the king. And then advancing it already gives me a passed pawn. Okay, and I'll just play a couple more moves from the analysis. King to d5, king to d3, and then knight to c4. And at this point, I can advance my pawn. And of course, White can get a check in, but now this king is going to hit these pawns here, and then we can also see that this bishop has now corralled this knight. So at this point, we can see that Black has a huge advantage and is going to probably win fairly easily. So let's see what happened in the game. So after bishop to c4, my opponent plays knight to e3. And I just back up my bishop. I want to keep an eye on this pawn and try to limit my opponent's knight's movements. Okay, he goes back to d1, and I think he's just trying to kind of hold hold the status quo, basically. Maybe hoping that I don't figure out a way to break through. And actually, this was a difficult position for me to think about because I realized this too. I didn't want to just shuffle pieces around. But I knew I had a winning advantage, and I realized that the solution, the plan, was to try to attack this knight, because in doing so, with the combined efforts of the bishop and the king, I'm either going to force a trade of bishop and knight, in which case the pawn endgame is, I believe, was totally winning at the time, or actually be able to trap the knight or use that attacking the knight to win more material. So let me show you a couple lines here. Well, let me show you what I played in the game. I played king to c2, and then he brought his knight to e3 with check, which is what I was expecting. King to d2, continuing that attack, and during the game, he actually ended up playing knight to c4, allowing that trade. But I actually looked at a few lines. Of course, he cannot play his knight to f1. But I did look at if he went to g4, and then I saw basically that I can try to trap it. Okay, and then if he moves here to try to keep me out, I just move in. And then let's say, for example, I see, because now I'm actually attacking the g3 pawn. And I'm going to win all of these pawns, so he really can't go this way. And so that's why in the game he allowed this trade. Let's go back right here. And I take it. And then he takes back. And then here I had another decision. Should I play king to e3? And then maybe go this way. Actually, I think during the game I was thinking I would just follow him in. So if he went for this pawn, for example, I would just take this pawn. And then if he, for some reason, went for these pawns, then at that point I can actually play and get a passed pawn here too. So again, that's totally winning. During the game though, and again, we've already been playing for almost 5 hours, I was pretty tired. And king to e3 in later analysis shows to be definitely a winning move, but I was having trouble visualizing the tempos between the two kings. It was trying to keep it the image of where both kings were, because I was afraid of some type of situation where I didn't count right or something. So I actually played something which I thought was a little easier to figure out and gives me a simpler win, which is e5. And then after this passed pawn is created and he goes for it, then again, I just take the opposition, and then depending on what he does, I'll go the other way. So if he takes here, which he did in the game, I play king to c4. Now, the idea here is that if he tries to go for these pawns, that my queen eventually will be able to handle everything else. So he ended up resigning back here. Hey guys, I hope you found that interesting and helpful. I thought it was a very nice endgame showing the difference between knight and bishop. Of course, the knight sometimes has the advantage as well. But in any case, if you haven't checked it out already, I have my round 1 highlights that show a couple of my instructive positions from my first round of the Cleveland Open. And check back soon in the notes. I'll have analysis from my other games from the Cleveland Open.